My name is I'm 30 years old. For my 30th birthday, my family threw me a surprise intervention in front of 40 people. I walked into my parents' living room expecting balloons and cake, the smell of vanilla frosting, maybe a few awkward hugs. But instead, there were chairs set in a circle, a printed banner that literally said intervention, and faces I recognized from every corner of my life. Aunts, cousins, neighbors, my boss's wife, even my childhood piano teacher. 40 people, 40 witnesses. My dad cleared his throat like he was about to give a toast, then said, "We're here because you're selfish, ungrateful, and tearing this family apart." The room went quiet in that way where you can hear your own pulse. My mom stood next, holding a stapled packet like it was a court document, and began reading a list of everything I did wrong since childhood. She read it like a eulogy for the daughter she wished she had. Missed calls, college choices, relationships she didn't approve of, the way I dressed, the way I spoke, the way I set boundaries. That my sister sat in the corner, phone held up, filming it for TikTok, whispering commentary under her breath as if this were content. I sat there quietly. That part is important. I didn't cry. I didn't interrupt. I let them finish. Because while they were preparing this performance, I had been preparing something else. It started months earlier when the pressure turned public. Family dinners became interrogations. Private messages became group chats. My dad would lecture me about gratitude in front of relatives. My mom would forward old screenshots to prove I was always like this. I learned to document, not out of revenge, out of survival. I saved voicemails. I kept texts. I recorded conversations where I was cornered and blamed, where love was conditional and shame was currency. I didn't plan a dramatic reveal. I just refused to be gaslit anymore. So when I realized this birthday wasn't about celebrating me, but about breaking me, I knew the moment had arrived. They wanted a spectacle. They wanted compliance. They wanted me to apologize for existing differently. And when my sister panned her camera across my face, waiting for tears, I felt something settle inside me. Calm, steady, clear. After my mom finished her list, she looked at me with practiced disappointment and said, "Do you have anything to say?" I looked around that circle at people who'd never asked how I was, but had plenty to say about who I should be. I thought about the nights I went home shaking, the mornings I woke up with dread, the birthdays I'd spent shrinking to keep the peace. I thought about the word intervention and how it was supposed to mean help, not humiliation. I breathed in, counted 2, 3, and said, "Funny, I've been recording too." The air changed. You could feel it. My sister's phone wobbled. My dad laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. My mom's smile froze. I stood up, connected my phone to the TV, and pressed play. The first audio was my dad, calm and cruel, telling me I was a burden unless I did exactly what he wanted. Then my mom crying softly while explaining how she'd tell everyone my private struggles for my own good. Then my sister giggling about views and likes, saying people love a messy redemption arc. Each clip played to the end. No edits, no commentary, just their voices, their words, their intentions laid bare. Faces in the room shifted. "Konjong embarrassmento, anga," a cousin whispered. "Did he really say that?" Someone else stood up. Another person quietly left. I kept going. Text messages appeared on the screen, timestamps and all. Threats dressed as concern. Ultimatums dressed as love. The narrative they built collapsed under its own weight. When the screen went black, no one clapped. No one spoke. My dad tried to interrupt, but the room had turned. People asked questions, real ones. Why was this public? Why was she filmed without consent? Why did you call this a birthday? My mom started to cry. Real tears this time, but not the kind that erase harm. My sister stopped recording. The silence stretched until it felt like a verdict. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't insult anyone. I simply said, I'm done being the family project. That's when the fractures began. Arguments sparked in corners. Defenses crumbled. Long-held alliances snapped. By the time the night ended, 6 relationships were already broken beyond repair, and I walked out without cake, without gifts, without a family the way it used to be, but with my dignity intact, my truth heard, and my life finally my own. I stepped outside into the cold night air, my hands shaking, not from fear, but from release. Behind me, through the thin walls of that house, voices collided. Accusations, excuses, damaged control. I sat in my car for a long minute before turning the key, realizing something huge had shifted. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the problem they could all agree on. The drive home felt unreal, like I had crossed an invisible border. My phone buzzed nonstop, missed calls, texts swinging wildly between anger and apology. My aunt messaged that she had no idea. A cousin said she was proud of me. My dad left a voicemail saying I'd embarrassed the family. My mom sent a long paragraph about how hurt she was. My sister blocked me, then unblocked me, then sent a single line, "You ruined everything." I didn't reply. I slept deeper that night than I had in years. The fallout came fast. The next morning, my parents called an emergency family meeting without me. By noon, my uncle had told my dad he wouldn't be coming around anymore unless things changed. A family friend who'd watched the whole thing said she didn't feel comfortable being associated with that kind of public shaming. My sister's TikTok never went up. Apparently, once people realized she'd filmed it without consent, sponsors pulled away. One relationship cracked after another. Not because I exposed secrets, but because the truth refused to stay quiet. 6 relationships ended that night, some loud and explosive, others silent and final. My parents blamed me. I didn't correct them. I was done auditioning for fairness. In the weeks that followed, the guilt tried to creep back in. Years of conditioning don't disappear overnight. I'd wake up thinking maybe I should apologize just to smooth things over. Then I'd listen to the recordings again, not to punish them, but to anchor myself in reality. I started therapy. I learned new language for old pain. I learned that boundaries aren't punishments. They're doors. You decide who gets to walk through. Stopped attending gatherings where I was treated like a lesson instead of a person. I unfollowed people who thrived on my silence. I chose peace even when it meant being misunderstood. My parents eventually asked to meet on neutral ground at a coffee shop. They said they wanted to move forward, which turned out to mean pretend it didn't happen. I told them I was open to rebuilding, but not rewriting history. My dad bristled. My mom cried. We left without resolution. That was one of the 6 relationships that ended that night. Not with screaming, but with clarity. My sister never apologized. She posted vague videos about betrayal and family loyalty. I blocked her. Another relationship gone. Painful, yes. But honest dot, what surprised me most was what grew in the empty spaces. Friends stepped closer. Colleagues treated me with a new respect. I found joy in ordinary things again. Morning light, music on the drive, the sound of my own laughter without a knot in my chest. I celebrated my actual birthday a month later with people who showed up to celebrate me, not fix me. There was cake, there were candles, there was no circle of chairs, no banner, no cameras waiting for my breakdown. Just warmth, just choice. Sometimes I replay that moment in the living room when I said, "Funny, I've been recording to," not because I'm proud of the chaos, but because it reminds me of the exact second I stopped shrinking. They called it an intervention. I call it my exit. If you're listening to this and you've ever been made the villain in someone else's story, if your pain has been packaged as a performance, if love has come with conditions you can't survive, know this. You are allowed to tell the truth. You are allowed to leave the room. You are allowed to choose yourself, even when it costs you relationships that only existed when you stayed small. That night, 6 relationships ended, but one finally began. The relationship I have with myself built on honesty, courage, and freedom.